Here's how to play Dusekkar and Forsaken. You're welcome. What the fuck? Oh, I missed. Dusekkar is a supportive survivor in Forsaken. He's kinda squishy, very good at making sure others aren't squishy, and he's literally me. Aside from the passive, which is literally useless, he's got two abilities that both specialize in keeping your teammates safe. First, we have Funny Shield, an ability that makes all Jason players roll over in their graves. You basically just nullify anything you want for no good reason, essentially negating Jason's gashing wound. It also lowers damage over time, which I actually didn't know until I was editing this video. Debs, you should probably change that.
We got him! Send an evac!
Sick son of a bitch tried to change the course of his.
Second, we have the Funny Beam, an ability that kneecaps the killer and provides performance-enhancing buffs to a survivor for a limited time. Okay, this is just drug. As shown in the clip, you can clearly see that it goes through walls. It has a piercing effect that hits as many survivors, or killers, that may be in its path, varying only in effectiveness the more Dusekkars there are in the match. The duration could sway from minor inconvenience to minor inconvenience, so it's best to just be accurate with this extremely pitiful hitbox. See, there's a reason this is a difficulty 5 survivor. You're extremely high priority, your abilities all help your team but not yourself, and the only one that can help you takes 2 seconds to charge and fire. See, you're essentially completely alone unless your team knows how to play the game, and let's be honest, you're playing Dusekkar. I don't think that's the case. Onto some things you need to watch out for. If there are ever 3 Dusekkars in the same match, you need to be wary of who's protecting who. First of all, if the 3 of you ever protect someone at the same time as each other, the shields will explode, blinding all of you for a long duration and being the only instance of slowness 3 in the entire game for the same time. Second, if you ever see the survivor you're protecting run in your direction, cancel the shield about 2 seconds before the killer makes it to you. That will be the amount of end lag the ability has, which would prevent you from running, usually resulting in a punishment. Finally, paying attention to the health of the survivor on the left-hand side is crucial. You can't protect someone from dying if they have too little HP to tank the hit. Sometimes it's better to use Plasma Beam, or protect another survivor, probably a sentinel, to give them safe passage to protect the survivor that's in danger for you. But you're not here for a summary, so let's get into the basics of how to play Dusekkar. When playing Dusekkar, you need to always understand one thing. Your abilities are designed to be used at a long distance to protect your teammates. If you're behind a wall next to the chase, you better start expecting to get found. This isn't to say that it has its upsides to being near the chase. It's easier to use your spawn protection, it's easier to read the killer's movement for the plasma beam, but this all comes with the trade-off of losing your own personal safety. Dusekkar's worst map is Planet Roz, having an entire section in the middle completely dedicated to a conglomerate of walls, making it almost impossible to use spawn protection reliably, so only in this case is it better to be there than not. Simply put, if the killer ever has more than 3 brain cells, they'll swap targets, most likely to you, unless they're Jason, because bleed actually pierces Dusekkar's shield damage over time protection. Dusekkar's best maps have a certain criteria. There's usually 1 or 2 spots that have raised elevation, keeping them out of sight with a long roundabout way to get to them, usually defended by a sentry. The only downside to being this far is the trade-off of accuracy, as already stated, but if you're good enough to make it work, all of a sudden you'll be quoting the sniper from Team Fortress 2. When you're using your abilities, you need to pay attention to the killer more so than the survivor. If they're in the middle of an animation, it might be better to use Plasma Beam to hit a survivor to help them get away, because naturally, if you hit a killer when they're in an animation, it won't do anything because the slow is just completely useless. You can also do this with spawn protection, but it's harder to time, because if they see the shield pop up, they won't use their most powerful punishing ability, they'll just swap targets. When making the decision to zap a killer or a survivor, it's better to zap the killer. When giving speed to a survivor, the killer might inexplicably swap targets the second you hit the wrong survivor, or you could miss entirely because they're trying to dodge the killer's attacks. The killer has to make more linear movements to keep up with a running survivor, making it easier to time. And if they try to specifically dodge your beam, they'll still lose time because the survivor made distance and chase. So no matter what, regardless of if they're aware of you or not, it's better to aim for the easier to hit, larger hitbox killer than the sporadic movements of the smaller hitbox survivor. Not to mention, the beam will give slowness 2 to killers while giving speed 1 to survivors, so it's just more effective overall. I only have experience playing Dusekkar on PC, so when it comes to aiming through walls, it's a little bit tricky. It doesn't go nearly where you think it will. It's better to aim lower on the wall to make the beam go more linear, potentially wallbanging a killer. If you aim where you think the killer is, because most people play in third person, the camera angle might work against you, sending your beam into the stratosphere. So it's best to learn how to not be entirely countered by a structure. I didn't know this the first round I played, but to cancel spawn protection you need to deliberately move your mouse away from the person you're protecting. There is no toggle cancel by pressing the same button. More so, the range of which you get your experience from ending a protection is directly matching with the slowness you receive on your end of the ability. The moment the slowness expires, you can move your mouse and gain the experience. Resistance 4 is second only to the damage nullification of guests' abilities. Throughout 10 seconds of the ability's usage timer, this clearly makes this survivor the best supportive character in the game. When using spawn protection, there will be a circle you must keep your mouse in to keep the ability running. This becomes a problem if the survivor ever tries to lead the killer your direction, making you turn your camera, which keeps your mouse still. Unfortunately, there's no way to get around this unless you sweat your camera movement to make only the smallest adjustments to keep your mouse in the circle without breaking line of sight. So here's a tip for all you other survivors out there. Give your Dusekkar a chance. You have 10 seconds of taking 2 damage instead of 20, so make use of it no matter how low you are. Take a couple hits to regen stamina, and then continue the chase after the 10 seconds are up. Spawn protection can be used through walls, albeit not initially, but as long as they don't remain 2 seconds out of your line of sight, the shield will be fine after going back into line of sight, so it's best to pick a spot without many walls to break it. As you could probably tell, Dusekkar's counter revolves around walls. Some maps you'll have to really deal with it, meanwhile in other maps it might be a minor annoyance. But don't ever take a Dusekkar for being unable to loot, because it's not about the character, it's about the player. I'm going to share a little bit of my own personal opinion on Dusekkar. Like I said in the summary, Duskar's passive levitation is hilariously useless right now. If you tap shift, you don't make footsteps with other characters. If I had to make a suggestion to change it, it would be that Dusekkar would be unaffected by certain map obstacles like water, which gives you slowness 2, or John Doe's trail, which gives you corruption, while making a constant levitation sound like a whir or wind blowing. This would directly punish Dusekkar for being too close to chase, having a noticeable presence in the form of audio which discerns him, and punishes him for being within striking distance of the killer, actively shirking his role as a stealth supporter. That's not to say that it's a little niche, and they could just fix the timing for the running audio to make footsteps quicker into the running animation, but if they didn't do that and decided to keep the movement tech, Dusekkar would need to be changed to be more useful. Personally, I have experience in another game, which is a character that is similar to the way Dusekkar plays. I actively play this character the same way, so if you see the way I play during streams, do as I say, not as I do. You could call it a form of muscle memory, and I don't like to toot my own horn, but I've gotten so used to being closer to chase that I can't make the micro adjustments needed to play from a safe distance. But I am good at looping, so I can make it work. Aside from that, his abilities are fairly powerful. The flick of your hand is enough to stall a killer for a very long time. I like how the hitboxes are right now, reporting quality over quantity in your aiming. Due to his 90 HP, he dies in a minimum of 3 hits to John Doe, a character that has a very, very rough time dealing with Dusekkar, given his abilities restricting movement, which Dusekkar provides for his team alongside free protection. So you could call this a silver lining for John Doe players who struggle against him. If he had 100 HP, that would result in an entirely extra hit if they dodged your corruption trail well enough. So finally, I like the spot Dusekkar is in right now, but the Discord seems to think entirely differently from my opinion, as the poll they made as I'm recording this audio to this video seems fairly one-sided. So, I leave you off with that. Wishing you very good luck, and happy hunting. Peace!